learners and listeners, welcome to this session Critics of Modern Economics. This lecture is part of the course Gandhi Economic Thought. This entire course is part of the program Masters in Gandhian Studies program. Welcome to this session. I am Dr. G. Uma, working as an assistant professor in the School of Gender and Development Studies, Indira Gandhi National Open University. We have designed this session to make our learners and listeners to critique the existing modern economics from a Gandhian perspective. We have designed this session in the context of Gandhian thought perspective to critique the modern economics, which would imply looking for alternative thought, which would have a potential to overcome the severe limitations in the discipline that is being criticized. I have included some criticism from non-Gandhian perspective as well, so that we can understand the mainstream criticism as well. According to Gandhian economists and other critics of modern economics, they consider modern economics fail to take ethical consideration into account, and hence Gandhi had said that the discipline as followed as thought was largely irrelevant to understand human behavior and for prescribing cures for economic ills that appear in the system. Gandhi understood some basic problems with the modern economics and economic system from two notable Indian scholars, that is Dadabhai Naoroji and Ramesh Chandra Dutt. He had read Naoroji's Poverty and Un-British Rule in India and Dutt's Economic History of India. Here we will present the critique which two scholars had developed during earlier times, that is Tolstoy and Ruskin. Both had taken moral stand on how labor should be treated and criticized the way in which it was treated. We begin this lecture with the following discussions. It is followed by the debate within economists in India about the need for separate theory to understand and analyze the economic system in India. Here we need to mention the notable economist, that is J.C. Kumarappa. He not only developed a critique but also suggested an alternative system, which is briefly we are discussing here. We have also introduced Partha Dasgupta's brief comment on what is emerging as criticism under postmodern thought in the Western world. Okay. Finally, Gandhi saw and experienced the pressure of colonial rule on people and the economy, which made him rethink on the economic issues and take strong position. So, we will make our learners and listeners to acquaint these points of Gandhi's critique of economics. This entire lecture is designed with the following objectives. After listening this lecture, you would be able to understand the critique of modern economics and Gandhi's basic critique of modern economics. Let us start with critiques of economics discipline. Among the foreign scholars who have developed and critique of economics before Gandhi has developed his economic thoughts are Tolstoy and Ruskin. These are the two important scholars. Tolstoy's basic criticism was about the way labor was treated in economics. Tolstoy have developed the concept of bread labor out of self-realization. He belonged to the feudal family from Russia and brave warrior. He disapproved of war and became world-renowned literature for his piece of fiction, War and Peace. Many of our learners and listeners, you must have read the book War and Peace. His concept of bread labor was that one must earn one's bread from sweat of one's brow. One does not have a right to eat if does not perform bodily labor. Here we must Understand that he clearly stated that one does not have right to eat if one does not perform bodily labor. Strictly speaking, this was not economics but moral sentiment expressed and practiced for survival. The critique that gets developed in the process of evolution of economics as a discipline is that this concept challenges the labor theory of value and also marginal school. Another notable scholar in this regard is John Ruskin. John Ruskin had more substantial comment to make on economics. His famous book Unto This Last was first published in 1862, the time when classical economics was firmly established. In this lecture and previous lecture, I clearly point out that over a period of time, economics has developed as a positive science. In modern economics, therefore, man has got established as economic man. This implied that the expression economic man is that in general circumstances at an individual level, man will maximize benefits and minimize cost in any activity that is economic. Tolstoy's position would be that for eating food, man should not be an economic man, irrespective of his or her capacity to buy food without physical labor. He or she should be working physically for food. Tolstoy thought never entered economics discipline, but Gandhi used it, as we will see in the further lectures. In that section, quote, "The social affections," said the scholar, "are accidental and disturbing elements in human nature, but avarice and the desire of progress are constant elements. Let us eliminate the inconstants and considering the human being merely as a covetous machine, examine by what laws of labor, purchase and sale the greatest accumulative result in wealth is obtainable. Those laws once determined, it will for each individual afterwards to introduce as much of the disturbing affectionate element as he chooses and to determine for himself the result on the new conditions supposed." Unquote. If you look at this quote, like for example, the Industrial Revolution was at its peak when he published the book in 1862. Factories were all around. Industrial production attracted rural labor to urban areas. Their living condition in the cities were not very good. The firm establishment of classical economics as a discipline had made government and business to take more seriously. So, the economic man was rising fast and getting established. So, to make this understand what is economic man, the above quote we were discussing, Ruskin did not like the idea of in which man was treated in economics. He critiqued the political economy mainly for the way in which labor employment and wages were determined in theory. So, he commented the political economy. His idea of political economy was, quote, "The economy of the state or of citizens consists simply in the production, preservation and distribution at fittest time and place of useful or pleasurable things." Like for example, the farmer who cuts his hay at the right time, the shipwright who drives his bolts well home in sound wood, the builder who lays good bricks in well tempered mortar, the housewife who takes care of her furniture in the parlor and guards against all waste in her kitchen, and the singer who rightly disciplines and never overstrains her voice are all political economists in the true and final sense, adding continually to the riches and well-being of the nation to which they belong. Unquote. The feeble debate has ensued among economics during pre and post independence period Let us start how these economists, especially like for example, how the previous what we are talking about, how it really related to the Indian economic system. So, the already existing the feeble debate has ensued among economists during pre and post independence period on the issue whether there should be a separate theory for Indian economy. That is the first thing they were talking about. The second is that this had its base in the continued argument in the discipline about the dominance of history and institution over logic and scientific method of analyzing human economic behavior and its interpretation. The Austrian school has a major contribution in bringing objective analysis and creating the economic man. The British tradition has had a consideration of history and institution in its economic thought and theories. For example, the earlier quote I was talking about this. So, two economics, especially in India, there is a two economists. Notably, we need to mention here, that is the S.V. Ketkar and R.K. Mukherjee, that they thought that the Indian economy should have a separate economic theory to understand and analyze the Indian economy. They argued that the production function developed in the West could not explain the production relation in Indian production system. Especially N.V. Sovani sharply made this argument while commenting that the nature of an economy did not depend on techniques of production, but the socio-economic condition, hence the modified theory was necessary. Another notable economist here we need to mention is that Jarskew Rogan. He is a noted economist and his comments are as follows, quote, "There is an economic theory which does not have any corresponding reality in the society, and there is a reality which cannot be explained by the existing economic theory." So, here we need to note it down. Another important person here we need to note down is that Justice Ranade, who is also an economist, along with B.G. Kale and D.R. Gadgil, believed that there was no need for separate theory. So, based on this lecture, you would have understood that in India also there are two simultaneous, the debate went during that time. One set of economists, they wanted a separate theory, economic theory, to understand and pursue Indian economic system. So, some of them like Justice Ranade, the V.G. Kale and D.R. Gadgil, they believed that there was no need for a separate economic theory. Already I have mentioned about the S.V. Ketkar and R.K. Mukherjee. These two, they thought that there was a need for a separate economic theory to understand and analyze the Indian economic system. They argued that, these two economists argued that the production function developed in the West could not explain in the production relations in the Indian production sector. Another important notable person here we need to mention is that S.V. Sovani sharply made this argument while commenting that the nature of an economy did not depend on the techniques of production, but on the socio-economic conditions, and hence a modified theory was necessary. Nevertheless, all these economists were suggesting modification of the existing theory, and they clearly points out that we should recognize the importance of history. So, when we make any economic system, we should consider the history based on the historical development in a particular country. We need to develop the separate economic system. So, whoever they criticize the existing modern economics theory, they thought that we cannot have a universal economic system throughout the world. So, we need to consider the existing historical facts Based on the facts, we need to develop the separate economic theory for each country. This is very important. And another noted person here we need to mention is that Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who was also an economist, had his comments on the macroeconomics and especially on the fiscal prudence and the role of the state. Another important person already I have mentioned, he is a Gandhian economist, Dr. J.C. Kumarappa. He was an economist trained in the West. Kumarappa critiqued the modern economics, and that should be worth noted here. To him, modern economics promoted a system of market where use value could only be exchanged in market. He disagreed with the dominance of self-interest and allowance of freedom to pursue it with the state as a facilitator. He saw violence in this process. He proposed economy of permanence, where people should work with nature to satisfy their basic minimum needs and without creating any major conflict with nature. So, these are the existing criticism from various scholars. Here we need to note down that. Now, let us turn our attention to mainstream critics very briefly. In the postmodern thought has influenced economic theorizing as well. Partha Dasgupta has explained new criticism in the following. According to him, quote, neoclassical theory contends that the particular set of institutions in an economy does not matter. These positions rest on 3 points. One is that outcomes are determined by fundamental forces, that is reflecting resources, preferences and technology. The second one is that these forces led to Pareto efficient outcomes, and third one is that institutions do not even influence the choice of the equilibrium. This example best all of us, even our learners and listeners, you can able to understand. For an example, whether a society has an institution in which the bride's family pays a dowry or a groom's family pays a bride price or neither one, neoclassical theory would contend that with given fundamentals, the distribution of incomes, whether whoever pays, whether bride or groom pays, the neoclassical theory would contend that with given fundamentals, the distribution of incomes, whoever pays, there is a distribution of incomes will be same as it would have been without those institutions. So, the standard modeling techniques according to neoclassical theory in neoclassical economics is to solve for outcomes that would emerge from an impersonal setting with market for all goods, all periods and all risk where people make trades with the market. So, history does not matter here. Here the institution, particular institutions, even institution do not even influence the choice of the equilibrium. Here there is an institution and like for example, history does not matter and there are a strong hypothesis. And in leaving out institution, history and distributional considerations, neoclassical economics leaves out the heart of the development economics. So, this is a basic thing. Whoever pays, there is a exchange value, there is a trade, that is all according to neoclassical theory. It can seen from the above discussion that the critique of economics is also raising issues that would lead to consideration of history and institutions in any society. It is becoming clear that economic system is a subsystem getting influenced by other system and cannot be treated as the main system affecting all other. Gandhi wanted to make this point clear that he also added that what ought to have been incorporated in understanding and analyzing and shaping an economic system. Let us see next critics of British economic policy. Gandhi also inspired by two persons from a foreign critic of modern economics which led to Gandhi's economic thought origin. They were we need to mention here is that Leo Tolstoy from Russia and John Ruskin from England. But Gandhi specifically developed his economic thoughts for an India. He was like again and again we need to understand that Gandhi, he was not a theorist. He wanted the Indian economic system to evolve in a particular way. His unrest with the economic state of affairs seemed to have been from reading of, I have already mentioned Dadabhai Nauroji's work depicting the poverty in India and Ramesh Chandra Dutt's Economic History of India, and both their work make the Gandhi to move emotionally. Gandhi and I have also mentioned the other two people are Leo Tolstoy from Russia and John Ruskin from England. Okay. So, he has read the book Dadabhai Nauroji. Again I am mentioning here in this lecture. Dadabhai Nauroji published his book Poverty and Un-British Rule in India in 1888. He was one of the bright Indians who had become a member of British Parliament. He had imbibed the true spirit of the parliamentary democracy. He developed the critique of British administration of its colonies, and chief among them was India. He analyzed India as an economy and wrote about its status. He was the first Indian economist to make an economic assessment of India. In his analysis, he showed that India's economic condition had become pathetic. More importantly, through his analysis, he showed that the cause for poverty in India was the British rule and the colonial policies. He showed with the data that there was a continuous and planned wealth drain from India to England. Nauroji was also the first person to eliminate, however inadequately, national income of India. He used production statistics for this purpose and worked out that in 1876 per capita production in India was worth 40 shillings or converted in rupee of a day, rupees 20 rupees. This one figure was enough to depict abject poverty and destitution in India by the last quarter of the 19th century. Before we get into Nauroji, here I would like to mention the work of the Adam Smith. He published the Wealth of Nation in the year 1776. He theorized about laissez-faire and the role of the state as a facilitator, given that he saw tremendous potential in increasing industrial production through division of labor. He also had foreseen and stated that division of labor was limited by the extent of market. 112 years later, Nauroji showed that indeed England had followed the policy advocated in extending the market with a roaring success. A trading company has gained enormous political power. In 1860, the Queen had subjugated India totally, and even the government followed the same exploitative policies. Export from India, here I would like to mention this to make our learners to understand how British government followed the policy for India. The factory productions, like for example, I will start with agriculture. Export from India of agriculture, produce and other raw materials at cheap rates provided ample raw material to British factories. The factory production was pushed India at a price that was far lower than the cost of the production that indigenous producers could produce. This was a serving policy of extending market so that the division of labor in English factories would go on profitably. This indigenous production base was destroyed completely in India. Nauroji wrote that from 1870 onwards, the rural population has started registering an increase. Workers in indigenous non-agriculture production were pushed out and they joined the already crowded agriculture, reducing average productivity to the further lower level. Later, the population statistics showed that between 1871 and 1911, the percentage of rural population to total population has increased. Nauroji stood vindicated. Secondly, the taxation policy of the British rule on the India subjects was also exploitative. Income tax on income from agriculture was on the average 15% in India as compared to 8% in Britain. Further, this income to the public exchequer in India was not utilized for the welfare of the Indian population. In addition, England had laid home charges on India. This was the amount extracted from revenue generation in India to meet the expenses of the British administration administering India. The third important criticism Nauroji was that the exploitation of British was not restricted to economic sources of the colony, that was India, but it extended to destroying human resource as well. The British introduced an education system that almost completely destroyed the skill base in the country. Another person who presented the critique of the British economic system was R.C. Dutt. He took forward the work of Nauroji, especially on international trade. He estimated that by end of the 19th century, Britain had drained India of 20 million sterling pounds. This left nothing as a resource within the country to invest in productive work. He also came to similar conclusion that the British policy in India was to extort wealth from India. Dutt has attempted a more comprehensive work of writing the economic history of India. Dutt records economic condition in Bengal between 1757 and 1785. He had documented the work of the British governors of the company and their policies for business and administration. In different chapters, he had analyzed the situation that prevailed in different regions such as Madras, Bombay, North India and South India. He had also examined and analyzed domestic and international trade, deterioration of the Indian industry and political administration until 1860, when Queen of the Britain was also crowned as the Queen of India. Another very important notable point here we need to understand that Gandhi rejected the marginal school. He did not isolate history and institutions from economic analysis and economic theorizing. He considered that his thoughts were his and yet not his because he was only reiterating what he had culturally ingrained in the Indian society and that should be sustainable. The marginal school made the economic thought objective and took the society to the different route. This led to his second major criticism on modern economics, where Gandhi said that unbridled consumerism would form an unethical society based on greed. He rejected the modern civilization because he thought that it came with modern economic analysis and policies. We will have more lectures on the detailed thoughts on these issues. Next one is, so far we have talked about the various scholars who have critiqued the modern economics and also what Gandhi thought about the modern economics and his criticism. This lecture is based on the existing IGNOU unit. I have given the references also. All of you can go through these references. If any one of you interested to learn more about these topics, you can refer Dasgupta and Parthar Dasgupta, Padoshi, all their works, and you can learn more about in this topic. Thank you so much.